alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Safina Society Nothing But Facts live stream, where today we study the Qisas al-Awliya, the stories of the Awliya. But first, I want to tell you something unique, something very simple for you to learn, and this is one of the things you write down. Okay? This is one of the things that, as I said here on this stream, it is a pretty casual stream, but sometimes there are things that you should write down and that you'll learn. So, مسائل واحدة وعشرة واجبة في العمر منك مرة. There are 11 things that are fard for you to do once in your life. Okay? This is fiqh here. 11 things wajib upon you once in your life. تعوذ تصلية وبسملة. The first three. These are all commandments in the Quran and the Sunnah, right? In general. So when something is a general command, it becomes sunnah, it becomes wajib for us to do it once. Okay? Ta'awudh, saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Wa basmala, saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Tasliya, before that he mentioned, to make salah on the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Takbiratun, tasbihatun, wa haylala, to say Allahu Akbar, to say Subhanallah, to say La ilaha illallah, once in your life. Okay. Hasbala, hamdala, wa hawqala, to say Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil, to say Alhamdulillah, to say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Hajjun ma istighfaruna mukammila, to make Hajj once in your life, and to say astaghfirullah once in your life. These are 11 things that are fard upon us to do. Wajib, one time in your life to do. All right, let's turn now to, first of all, let us now turn to our book that we read from after a pretty wild live stream yesterday, in which we basically went on a massive 9/11 tangent, which I stand by 100%. It's a joke and a laughing stock. The dominant theory, or so-called accepted theory of 9/11. Okay. That's the conspiracy, if there ever was a conspiracy. All right, Yahya ibn Mu'adh al-Razi. Today we're on Yahya ibn Mu'adh al-Razi, the 40th entry in Al-Risala al-Qushayriya.
So this book, it goes into Qawaid al-Tasawwuf too?
This?
Or is it just biography?
No, this first half of it is the pillars of Tasawwuf in every capacity. In the terminology, in the main states. He goes into Ahwal. He doesn't do like Adab Suluk al-Murid, such as how to be with your shaykh and things. He doesn't go into that. But he goes into the essential terminology of Tasawwuf, the states mainly. Al-Ahwal is the biggest thing. Right? He talks about like the Halul Raja, Halul, things like that. Yeah, Mustalah and Al-Warid, for example. What did they mean when the Qawm, people of Tasawwuf, say Al-Warid? Al-Warid, right? Al-Warid comes from a wird. When you have a wird, you have a warid of blessings that come to you. Something that comes to you that's nice all the time, like every 2 weeks. Someone who's struggling hard in the path. At some point, you don't pass 2-3 weeks without something amazing happening, right? That makes you feel that it's been worth the price. It's worth the effort, right? It renews your effort. And the ulama say that you're burning your firewood, right? So you need someone to fan it a little bit, to cool it down a little bit, and you get an amazing experience. Could be from a dream. It could be some kind of mukashafa. It could be some kind of what they call it, muwafaqa. Muwafaqa is one of the first levels of signs that a person gets that they're on the right path is muwafaqa. Let's say we bring up somebody's name right now. Hypothetically, we just start talking about one of our friends, right? And then he pops in, he walks in. This, like, it gives you a feeling that Allah is with you. sending you a little gift, a little Hershey kiss, right? A little thing that will go into your heart and make you certain, all right, we're on the right track. These are muwafaqat, and bigger things like a vision of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so much so that it was one of Imam Malik said that if I go a single night without seeing the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so how much effort is he putting in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifts him nightly with a vision of Sayyid al-Kawni alayhi salatu wasalam. And he took that, his nur and his path was taken from Sayyidina Ja'far as-Sadiq, no doubt about it. We know where he took his usul from, Rabi'atul Ra'i. We know where he took his qira'ah from, Nafi'. We know where he took his aqidah from. Okay, his aqidah, he took it from al-Hurmuz. We know, it was, subhanAllah, who was that main teacher? Ibn Hurmuz. We know, there's two Ibn Hurmuz, that's why. If for some reason the name is skipping my mind. But we have this, okay? We know exactly where Imam Malik received what he received. Okay. You're looking it up, right?
Yeah, Ja'far as-Sadiq.
Abdurrahman bin Hurmuz, right? There's two. There's one who's a companion of Abu Huraira. That's nothing to do with Imam Malik. And then there's the other who was our version of the mutakallim. He refuted the innovators all the time. Okay? Rai's gonna look it up. Yeah, Abdurrahman ibn Hurmuz. Yeah. He studied with him over 30 years. And he said he started studying with him for 7 years. He didn't mix a single sheikh with him. He did not mix a single sheikh with him. Okay? And that means that Malik became a master of aqidah first. The ahkam came later. And that's why the Maliki madhab, it's also a aqidah too. Can this book be available as a PDF? It's available as a PDF and the translated version too. Just put in Risala Qushayriya PDF. The Risala Qushayriya? Yeah. Just, they usually call it Qushayri's Epistle. Yeah. Yahya ibn Mu'adh al-Razi وهو أبو زكريا يحيى ibn Mu'adh al-Razi al-Wa'idh توفي عام 285 فريد عصره, meaning he was unique in his time, the unique one of his time. له لسان في الرجاء وكلام في المعرفة. His tongue when it comes to asking was special, like لسان في الرجاء. Raja is desire, having desires or creating desires in others, such as giving a speech or talking about Jannah, about ma'rifah, about the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you sit with these people, they talk more about the path and the beauty of life in this path as more than they talk about Jannah, right? وَكَلَامٌ فِي الْمَعْرِفَةِ. He has amazing speech, amazing discourse in ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma'rifah, right? Which is, ma'rifah is specifically the word for knowing the ways of Allah with His creation. Okay? Ma'rifah specifically means, when someone says arif billah, they know how Allah interacts with His creation. Okay? What is a signal from Allah that we're on the wrong track? What's a signal from Allah that we're on the right track? What is a sign of Allah's love for somebody? What is a sign of Allah's sakhat and maqt, waliyadu billah, His wrath and His displeasure with the person? Okay, that is ma'rifah. خرج إلى بلخ وأقام فيها مدة ثم رجع إلى نيسابور. He went out to Balkh, he stayed there a little bit, then he came back to Nishapur. قال كيف يكون زاهدا من لا ورع له تورع عما ليس لك ثم ازهد فيما لك. How could you be a zahid if you don't have wara? Right? What is an ascetic? An ascetic is somebody who leaves off a lot of dunya. But what is a wara'? A wara' is a cautious, scrupulous Muslim. He leaves off the haram. How exactly are you going to be somebody who is leaving off the halal when you haven't yet left off the haram? Okay? And the wara' leaves off the makruh that leads us to the haram. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. How exactly are you going to leave off what is makruh? All right? What is halal? And let's say you're at the dinner table and say, no, I'm going to decrease. I'm going to give away my car. But then you go and you smoke. It doesn't make any sense. Right? It doesn't make any sense. Or you mingle with women. This doesn't make any sense. So you cannot be an ascetic. The first layer of asceticism, if you want to be a zahid, is to leave off what is forbidden, right, from us to do. And then to leave off what is discouraged that leads to the forbidden. Then you can leave off, you can decrease of the halal. You can't build off a shaky foundation, says Walid Tijani. He confirms that this is a fact. Okay? وقال جوع التوابين تجربة وجوع الزاهدين سياسة وجوع الصديقين تكرمة. The hunger, the fasting and the hunger of the penitent ones is an experience, right? It's an experience, right? And you see beginners in the spiritual path, anything that they do of a spiritual nature, it's like, it's an experience. It's not something that they're always going to do. It's just like a one-time experience. That's what he means here. Yeah. The penitent one, when he's starting off, his worship is like it's an experience. وَجُوعُ الزَّاهِدِينَ سِيَاسَةً. Now, once you start passing and leaving off sins, and now you're like an ascetic, and you're on the path, you're on the spiritual path, he says now that their fasting is siyasa, meaning it's diplomacy with his ego. So, oh ego, I'm going to deprive you a little bit, and I'm going to give you a little bit. I'm going to go back and forth. The ego becomes like a horse that they're trying to tame, right? And a horse that they're trying to manage. You can't push yourself over the edge. Shaitan will try to push you over the edge. Keep doing more until you burst. And then you become worse than you were before. And more hesitant to go forward, to advance again. Okay? If I tell you to touch something and you get burned, afterwards you're not going to trust me. It's going to be very hard for me to get you to touch something again. Then he says, Ju' as-siddiqeen takarruma. The hunger, the fasting of the siddiq. This is the level of somebody who has arrived at the path. Al-Ghazali calls this the novice, the mubtadi', the salik, and the wasil. It's an honor. They realize what it is in reality. It's not you fasting, it's Allah elevating you to the maqam of the fasters so that He can give you a great reward. So you feel honored that you're even fasting. That's how they view ibadah. The awliya view ibadah as something that we're doing. It's not we're the ones who are doing it. Allah is giving it to us as a gift. The act of worship is a gift. That's the gift. Because it's a precursor to a great reward that He's going to give you. But they find such a sweetness in the act of worship itself, and they realize, I'm being honored here. وَقَالَ الْفَوْتُ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْمَوْتِ. Missing off the ability to worship Allah, losing an opportunity, that by itself, that is worse than death. Why? لأن الفوت انقطاع عن الحق. الفوت انقطاع عن الحق والموت انقطاع عن الخلق. When you die, you're cut off from the creation. But when you miss out an act of worship, you're cut off from the Creator Himself. الفوت أشد من الموت. وقال الزهد ثلاثة أشياء القلة والخلوة والجوع. Zuhd, it's really three things. You want to be on this path and be someone who left the world and came to the dunya. Came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Three things. Decrease in everything halal. Anything halal, decrease in it. Don't go so far into the halal because it's going to be a distraction. And it could rust up your heart. Okay, the halal is not something that you should indulge in. That's al-qillah. Wal-khalwa. Decrease in you have to have some time alone. Can you have a successful marriage while never being alone? Right? It's not possible. You have to be, and the more time you spend alone with your wife, the better the marriage is. It's like impossible. It's an impossible formula to break. It cannot possibly be with somebody a lot and not grow in that relationship. At the very least, I'm not used to life without her anymore. Like, that'll be too weird. At the very least. And that's what Habib Omar says about raising children. When someone asked him, should we allow our children to be exposed to what's out there, or should we protect them from these sinful things? Or should we expose them so they don't get shocked? He said, protect them so that by the time they get exposed, they're so used to the warmth of the life of the deen and the halal and the pure that their instinct will repel against these sins. That's what he said. Walaikum salam, Ismail, come on in. Okay. Wal-ju', hunger. Not possible to be on the path of ibadah and not go the route of hunger. Here, sit here so you can take that mic. Yeah, you can move my jacket and everything. Ismail Khatib here, PashaInternational.com. What's the website called? Pasha INTL. Yeah. PashaINTL.com. You can get neat things. Next, he says, لا ترجع على نفسك بشيء أجل من أن تشغلها في كل وقت بما هو أولى بها. لا تربح على نفسك. Okay. So he said, profit for yourself is that you always busy it with what is better for it. If you want to profit, who would not want a business that always goes like this, right? And if you have that kind of business, it's impossible at that point for you to have made a bad decision. That means at every turn you made the better decision, right? For the bottom line. So if our spirituality is also looking at a bottom line, then that bottom line is going to be at every turn we should be doing something which is benefiting the infinite or the eternal more than the temporal. So if I'm spending an hour on my eternal and 15 hours of my waking time on the temporal, that should never decrease. It should only increase. The time spent on the eternal should always increase. So Abdul Qadir Jailani said, when they asked him, how much time do we spend, what's a balanced amount of time to spend in ibadah and work? He started calculating, well, you're going to sleep this many hours, you have to spend this many hours eating, this many amount of taking care of yourself, this much being with your family. And then he ended up with like 9 hours. So he said, I would say 1 hour for work and 8 hours for ibadah. That was the life that he lived, right? Okay. So if someone reverses that now, well, if someone did an hour of khalwa in ibadah every single day, you should get a medal. If you're single and you do that, you don't get anything, right? And if you're a college student who's like immature still and you still got hormones going crazy, you should get a medal, right? But when you're single and you've stabilized and you have time and your mind is clear and you have more self-control, all right, it's expected for you to do even more than that. If you marry and you do that, we give you a nod. If you start having a job and kids and you do that, we shake your hand, we give you a medal. That's how it works. There comes a point then when your kids become more independent that you start getting more time back. And you see people who have a lot of kids and you wonder, how do they do it? Well, it's because, number one, these kids have smashed any concept of order and sleep. That's what kids do in your life. They will literally smash any order, any sense of, oh, I have to wake up at this hour, I have to wake up at that hour. Have you ever heard of Marie Kondo? Yeah, Marie Kondo. She's out. She put up the white flag, right? She's like Mrs. Organized and everything has to be perfect and follow these rules. And I go to some people's house and I got to see a schedule, right? At 8:05, the kid's got to be in bed, right? They work backwards, right? 7:35, brush teeth, put the PJs on. What life are you, right? We could never do that because one day Maghrib is going to be at 7:35, right? One day Iftar is going to be at that hour. I mean, stuff never happens. So finally, she put up the white flag, and she's like the queen of clean, they call her. Japanese decluttering. She basically has called it quits. So the whole world will now take exhale a breath of fresh air now that, all right, so there's a little bit of a mess. What can I do about it? There is some times where you say, I'm not even touching it. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you come home. If you come home at 10 p.m., right? And the only thing I will do is I will make sure there's no food out and no food uncovered because that's a sunnah.
Yeah.
And the food will go bad.
That's true.
Beyond that, all right, beyond that, I'm not parenting. Unless someone's screaming their head off, right, and needs to go to the accidents and emergency, as they call it in England, or the ER, as we call it here. We have PM medicine or whatever it's called, 24-hour doctors. If you're not dying, okay, I'm not parenting. I'm not doing anything after a certain hour. I clocked out. Okay, I'm not dad anymore. You call me Brother Shadi in the house, right? I'm not doing any of that. I'm definitely not, subhanallah, mopping up. But some people, they have this thing. They cannot clean a little bit. It's either a full DEFCON 3 level cleaning, right? Or it's or nothing, right? And that's, if I get going, it's very hard for me to do level 1 cleaning. Just barely tidying it up is very hard. It's if I pick up the spray, if I start working on a counter, it will be a 2-hour DEFCON 3. The whole kitchen's got to be cleaned. No, I don't know. قال من خان الله في السر هتك الله ستره في العلانية. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay? Terrible. If you betray Allah in secret, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will expose you in public. Fear the sins of the private times in the night. Okay? Have fear of that so that you don't ever get exposed. Okay. Lily Rose says she had a lot of interesting things in her book. I'm really curious at this point, what is there to say about decluttering? Like, what are the chapter titles? Removing stuff you don't want, removing stuff that you use, right? But later on, they use once a year. Removing or organizing things that you use every day. I mean, in my chapterization, al-babul awwal, ma la hajata lah, right? Things you do not need, okay? And then al-fasl al-awwal, first section of that bab, that which is no one can benefit from, throw it in the garbage. Fasl al-thani, that which people could still benefit from, give it to charity. Okay, between going from charity, from now till actually I get to go to charity, where do I put it? Some people put it in a garbage bag, right?
Yeah.
You know where we're going to have a stall is that phase right there. I'm not using it, but when am I going to go to Goodwill? Now we have the Dawah Center. Even with the Dawah Center, I come in, we do the stream, I leave, the bag stays in my back seat, right? And it doesn't leave for like months sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay? And that bag will just sit there in the trunk of the car forever. So that phase is a problem. Okay? So that's al-babul awwal wa fasl al-thani. Now we need targhib. Targhib is the virtues of removing the stuff out of your trunk and the virtues of decluttering. I'm telling you, we'll make a whole fiqh of this whole thing. Right? Right. Are we missing anything? Because al-kitab al-awwal, kitab or bab ma la hajata lah. Bab la hajata laka fih wa yantafi'u bihi ghayruk.
This is fihi nadar.
Fihi nadar, yes. As for what to do, what kind of bag will we put the stuff in? Are we going to use a garbage bag? Are we just going to throw it in the trunk? Fihi nadar, there's discussion. Fihi thalathatu aqwal. There are 3 statements about this, right? Oh man. I'm really curious, what is there? I guess that's how she would handle it. That's how I would treat the possessions. How about this? How about the worst of all possessions? I'll tell you. Yeah, no, we could actually write a whole book on this. The worst of possessions are of 2 types. One, the borrowed possession.
Oh, this is one.
That is terrible.
Look at this. Look at
Which one?
What does it say?
Thanking the item, but really thanking Allah. Allah. Check this out. Oh, Miriam says, if an item of clothing doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it.
That was her like whole motto, right?
Yeah, you know what I do? I actually, that's a good filter, right? I do this. If I see a toy in the house that hasn't been played with for 6 months, it's gone.
You have no idea how many times I've argued with my wife about this. I'll see a toy and we'll be like cleaning out his room.
Yep.
And I'll be like, let's get rid. Oh no, but like if it's sentimental and it's something I can pass down to like another kid or grand, I'll keep it.
Yeah.
When it's like something that's beat up, it's like something like we bought them from Walmart. It's like
that's because you're still in your first 5 years of marriage, right? I'll tell you what happens later on. You don't ask. You wait till everyone's left the house. Then I go to town,
I try to be honest, that's why.
As soon as everyone left the house, I go to town, right? And I'm taking it out, and then you take other garbage and put it on top of that.
Yeah, so they don't see it, right?
So they don't see it, right? I go to town and mop up, and here's the thing, I'm right 100% of the time. Nobody asks about it. Nobody says, oh, where was that toy car? Where was this? Where was that? Nobody asks. So I was right. Now, let me say this. Atiq Rahman says, yeah, the old saying, better to ask forgiveness than for permission. You guys hear all that construction over here? Crazy. Crazy construction going on back there. Now listen to this. Huh? It's not bad. Okay, good. One of the worst gifts, one of the worst things in your house, and this has its own beb, because it has a lot of discussion. Gifts your friends gave you that are meant to be on public display. I have an announcement to all my friends. Please, when you come, don't buy me a bowl, a vase, any of that Mikasa nonsense. I know that you got it from, like, Mikasa used to be an amazing company that it's like glass items, bowls, vases. It ends up being in like Odd Jobs. You know the stores like Odd Jobs or thrift stores? Somehow this company cheapened its brand. So I know you didn't pay much for it in the first place. That's number one. Number two, okay, what am I going to do with 1 million vases? Right? And then we have the debate. Oh, you got to put it in because they're going to come again. I want them to see it. That we
Great
put.
gift is a consumable gift.
Give me a consumable gift.
Eat it. And
Eat it and it's done with. Give me something that is going to be useful to me, right? And not something that, you know what? If you had took that $30, you paid $29.99 for that stupid thing, and went to Exxon and got me a gas card for $25, we would be best friends real quick, right? Think about that. I don't know. All right, next one. قال تزكية الأشرار لك هجن بك وحبهم لك عيب وهان عليك من احتاج إليك. Very important. If people who are bad, meaning they're outwardly sinful, okay? If they're outwardly sinful and they're shameless in their sins, if they like you, if they praise you, that's an insult. And if they love you, that is a very bad thing. There's something wrong with you, okay? There is something terribly wrong with you if the fasiqeen love you, okay? And anybody who needs you, you start to dislike, their rank decreases naturally in people's eyes. He's not saying that should be, but naturally, because when they need you, they're revealing their neediness and their dependence. Next biography, Yusuf ibn Hussein al-Razi. كان شيخ الري والجبال في وقته. He was a sheikh of an area called Rai. Okay. وكان نسيج وحده في إسقاط التصنع. He was extremely unique in that he despised tasannu'. Tasannu' is faking it. That's what tasannu' is. Tasannu' is this. It is, you are making yourself so formal and you are using technical terminology to try to make yourself appear what you are not. That is what we call tasannu'. Fakery. Being a fake and a fraud. Okay? And there is another thing, it's just takalluf. Takalluf it's making people burdened. When you enter, everyone has to stand up, shake your hand, kiss your hand, and do all this tashannu. Okay? Tasannu and takalluf. It's not good. It's not good. Okay. Then he says, وَكَانَ عَالِمًا أَدِيبًا. He was a scholar, and he was a man of letters, meaning he used to write books and poetry and all these things. صاحب ذا النون المصري. He was a companion of the Nun al-Misri. وأبا تراب النخشبي ورافق أبا سعيد الخراز. And he also kept company with Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz. Okay. قال لأن ألقى الله تعالى بجميع المعاصي أحب إلي من أن ألقاه بذرة من التصنع. To meet Allah with sins is better than meeting Allah with a false intention, worshipping Allah for the sake of other people. Riya. Okay. Riya. وقال إذا رأيت المريد يشتغل بالرخص فاعلم أنه لا يجيء منه شيء. If you find someone so-called seeking the path of Allah and he's busy looking for rukhas, rukhsa. Oh, this is halal. Who so-and-so said it's halal. Boom. Someone said there's a rukhsa here. Well, if you're Hanafi, you could do this. Well, if you're Hanbali, you could do that. He said, no, very well, no good will come from him. He has no discipline. He has no commitment. He has no ability to sacrifice. He has no sabr. People of rukhas, no good will come to them, from them. Always looking for the way out, a shortcut, a corner. Right? I say, why not? I'm going from valid opinion to valid opinion. Yes, but you're going from discipline to pleasing your nafs. That's what you're going to. You're going from rational consistency with your manhaj to pleasing your nafs. Fine, do it. It's halal, but no good will come from you. You lack discipline. You lack commitment. Your principle is what eases your nafs. That's your problem. Anyone whose principle in life and their filter of do or not to do or not to do, is the ease of their nafs, that's a problem. Unacceptable. It's halal for you, fine, but no good will come from you. And he says, وَقَالَ رَأَيْتُ آفَاتَ الصُّوفِيَّةِ في صحبة الأحداث ومعاشرة الأضداد ومرافقة النساء. I saw the flaws of Sufis, meaning the people who are trying to have zuhd and trying to do ibadah and trying to do all these things. Where do they come from? Keeping companions with people who don't know this path. Keeping company and being companions with people who do not know this path. Okay? That's a problem, because they will decrease your himma. وصحبة ومعاشرة الأضداد. Being in company that you can't help it, but you're in their company and they're against you. They're against this path. That's what I understand from this. Al-Addad meaning those who are against you. Okay? The novices, the Addad, people who are against you. They're not for that. That's what I understand from that. ومرافقة النساء. Keeping time with women. Right? Spending time with women. Right? Meaning, that's the first thing. It's haram in the first place. Like, what's your business with them? You're not talking about the wife, because that's a sunnah, so it would never be a flaw, right? But what's your business in mingling with the genders and messing around with that? وكتب إلى الجنيد. He wrote to Junayd, لا أذاقك الله طعم نفسك. May Allah never give you the taste of your nafs. فإن ذقتها لم تذق بعدها خيرا أبدا. Because if you become attached to that, the pleasing of your nafs, you will not taste anything after that. Next one, Ibrahim al-Riqi, if I'm pronouncing that right. He was from Sham, and he was from the time of Junayd al-Sadiq. قال المعرفة إثبات الحق على ما هو. Ma'rifah is to establish the truth in what it is. Seeker of knowledge, I see your question. SH, we haven't started the questions yet, but I will get to your questions. خارجا عن كل موهوم is to see the truth as it is, far from awham. Awham are illusions. A wahm technically is a conclusion that lacks evidence. That is a technical definition of a wahm. So a dhann can be dhann rajah, is more than 50%. That's a dhann. Al-yaqeen, let's start from the top. Al-yaqeen, write this. This is one of the things you write on the margin of your book. Al-yaqeen is absolute certainty. Does Antarctica exist? It exists. Maybe it exists? No, it exists. We've never seen it, but there's something called al-khabar al-sadiq, which means that enough atlases, enough geographers have told us it exists that it's impossible for them to conspire a lie. Therefore, I can have absolute certainty and yaqeen that Antarctica exists, and to doubt it would be foolishness, because enough people have told us that it exists, and they would be ridiculous to imagine they conspired a lie. That's what we call yaqeen. Okay. Number two, a dhann. A dhann is that we hold that to be the position, but it's not 100%. It's between like 99% and 51%. Like it's more, we're there, but I can't give you 100%. That's a dhann. And dhann can come from something that only one or two reliable people have told you. They could have made a mistake, right? They could have made a mistake. But I think they didn't make a mistake. I'm pretty sure, but I can't say 100%. That's what we call dhann. Okay? Shak, 50-50. 50-50. I'm 50-50. Wahm, or we could say, let's say wahm is a claim that has no evidence. The evidence for it is extremely weak or zero. Okay? That's what we call a wahm. And then jahl is admittedly zero. Okay? Jahl is less dangerous than wahm, because wahm is a claim that has nothing on it. Right? Most of what you read of Aqid al-Nisan, dhann is not just an assumption, no. It's an assumption with evidence. It's speculative knowledge. It's a speculative affirmation. It's like, this is what it is. I can't tell you 100%, but I'm pretty sure.
Between 50 and 99.
Between 51 and 99, including 51. 50-50 is what we call shak. Wahm, that which does not even have any good evidence to ground them. I'll tell you what awham are. A lot of people get into fake spirituality is mostly awham. Like a lot of stuff related to do this mantra, you're going to get that, right? Blah, blah, blah. That stuff it's awham. A lot of people's awham is a certain type of people who are into these things. And it's a delusion in a sense. Like you're making an affirmation and living your life off of something that has very, very little evidence. Okay? So that's a wahm. A jahl is an admitted, like you're stepping off. I cannot make an affirmation. That's jahl. Right? I can't make a comment. If you ask me about physics, a mas'ala in physics, I might tell you I can't say anything. Okay? That's al-jahl. Wahm is really bad. You have to eliminate from your life. Why does Allah forbid superstitions for us? Right? Superstitions. Because it's awham. The rabbit's foot. Okay? It's a wahm. There's no reason that the rabbit foot is going to make things better.
Like
it's a complete wahm.
Like for wudu, if people have doubts if they broke their wudu or not, like what Sheikh Harun would say is it's wahm if it's not based in an actual occurrence that happened in reality.
Yes.
It's shak.
Yes.
Shak breaks the wudu if you know something happened, you just don't know when it happened or something.
Yeah.
It's based in a reality. Wahm has no reality thing to it.
Like if you feel something, okay, but you don't know if that was like cloth or you pass gas, right? That's a shak, because something happened. A wahm has no basis. People who have awham, they don't go far in life. Usually people have to sit them down and do an intervention. Okay, so we're all about eliminating awham. Right? He then says, وقال القدرة ظاهرة والأعين مفتوحة ولكن أنوار البصائر قد ضعفت. He's talking about, he's sort of blaming, right? Tahir Omar is yelling at you.
Man, that was like 3 seconds ago. You asked the question like 2 seconds ago.
So you why aren't you automatic? Why isn't Ryan automatic within 1 second immediately like ChatGPT?
No, I was gonna answer it and then we started talking.
Yeah. القدرة ظاهرة. People have clear strength and their eyes are open, but the light of their hearts is dim. He's blaming people, right? So let me tell you something. Atheists say monotheists are atheists to all other gods except theirs. This is one of the common things that atheists do, is they'll liken the belief in God to belief in idols, Greek gods, things like that. The biggest difference is that the belief in God is based upon an airtight a conclusion, rational conclusion, that we see things. And God, philosophically, from the purely rational perspective, is the creator. We know only a few things about him. He's an all-powerful, knowledgeable, willful, existing creator. Because we look at the world around us, and it has systems. It has, it's designed clearly. It has beauty to it.
SubhanAllah, last night we were at NBF eating like some chicken.
Yeah.
And we looked out, and Sheikh Murad looked up because it was like maybe 11 o'clock. He looked up and he sees a ring around the moon.
SubhanAllah.
Have you seen this before?
What is it reflecting on?
No, it's an ice ring.
An ice
around,
ring, wow.
around the moon, and
Yeah.
it was so cool. It was like ice halo, and it's a perfect circle around the moon.
Wow.
It's an illusion. This.
Oh, wow, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
That is
We
insane.
looked up and we could see it, and we're like,
Wow,
SubhanAllah.
subhanAllah.
Yeah.
Looks like just like an eye is watching you.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. Looks like an iris with a pupil inside of it,
Yeah.
a reverse color.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is reason, right? And it's airtight. It is literally an airtight concept that just tell me how is even the Big Bang, let's say, from nothing, right? How can something come from nothing? Something must come from something. Okay, so and that thing must eventually be the stopgap that is absolute. That is absolute stopgap for why things are the way they are. You cannot explain a contingent thing by another contingent thing. A contingent reality can only be explained by an absolute reality, right? And so when people say that, we look at the creation and we conclude Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That answers that. The truth is no. That we need revelation to tell us that his name is Allah. We need a prophet to come and tell us what to do. That's a whole other subject. But if I have 2 eyes and I have a sound mind, I must conclude that there is a creator, right? That has knowledge, that has will, that is in control. Otherwise, we'd see chaos everywhere.
Wasn't that the thought process of Sayyidina Ibrahim, right?
Yeah,
He
it's the same thing.
He kept looking at different things, and
Yeah.
eventually each thing would fade in its own way, and eventually concluded there has to be.
There has to be one above all of these causes and effects. We don't say that Allah is the cause; He's the creator. A cause is a middleman, right? And so that's why we separate. We don't believe in the concept of we reject an atheist and we refute him when they say that, oh, okay, there's this God. Yeah, in the past they also worshipped lightning and they also worshipped Zeus and they also worshipped idols. They're not all the same. Those are solely based on awham. They're complete awham. And not only that, their spiritual experience is another cause for belief, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes spiritual experience as a cause of belief. When he says that, oh, pagans, your gods, they don't answer you when you pray to them. And when you do pray to Allah Ta'ala, you get an answer. It confirms our iman, right? When we make dua for something and we get it, it confirms our iman. So that spiritual experience is a cause of belief. Show me somebody who worshipped Zeus and had a spiritual experience, right? Or whatever these idols.
Well,
They just have jinni experience. These are jinns that bal kanu ya'budun al-jinn. Yes.
I think one thing I've noticed that I've yet to see with any other religion is, and this is, I think, again, and a lot of people try to conflate Islam with other religions in terms of how they view God.
Yeah.
Is no, I don't think any other religion has a God that goes beyond the human imagination, right?
Yes.
Because they're
SubhanAllah.
always, every religion, whether it's Zoroastrians with fire, or
Yeah.
Greeks with humanistic looking gods, or Christians believing that Sayyidina Isa is the son of God. Like all these things are human attributes. And this is also why they can so easily, mock and say and believe that God isn't like all powerful, right?
Because he's just one like you.
They feel like they can contest with him, right?
That's totally
you
true.
hear these weird quotes about like not even God, God forbid, can do such and such thing. You'll hear like people say this stuff.
Yeah.
Only in Islam do we have this concept where he's beyond our imagination.
Yeah.
You have to accept that there's
a limit.
There's a limit to you and an unlimitedness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And no other religion has demonstrated that. I don't think any other religion has. For them, they have to be able to grasp
conceptually,
right, within their own minds.
That's why Tanzih does not exist with Judaism and Christianity. And it's one of the greatest disservices for people to lump Islam with Judaism and Christianity. Theologically, it's a great disservice. You may say on some political, moral level, we do have some common ground and we have some common agendas. But the idea and the concept theologically, it's night and day. They are worshiping, their conceptual God is completely material, right? It's completely material. They're both Judaism and Christianity. They're no different when it comes to that. Tanzih, Halal Digest is asking, Halal Food Reviews. Tanzih means separating from our belief in Allah that which is only suitable for created things. Materiality, cause and effect, time and space. These are the 5 things that you find in the books of Aqidah. That is the definition of وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. There is none like unto him. In what way? That he does not have the attributes of مُخَالَفَةِ الْحَوَادِث. Right? He is not different from the created things. Created things must exist in some material form or other, right? Even if it's a subtle material. An abstract idea we say is not a thing, right? It's got to have an existence, a physical existence. And the proof of that is that وَقَدْ خَلَقْتُكَ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَلَمْ تَكُ شَيْئًا. Simply existing in your mind is not an existence. Did not Sayyidina Zakaria exist in Allah's knowledge? But we don't call that existence. Allah says, and I had created you and you were not a thing. Yet he was always in Allah's knowledge. So being in one's knowledge and in one's imagination is different from existing.
You reading the Dawah Fetchat today or no?
No.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Really? Subhanallah.
Pretty much.
Subhanallah.
Like Irada, Saluhi, and Tanzih.
Yes. Subhanallah. So Allah Ta'ala has a knowledge of something and he wills a thing, but yet it doesn't always exist. Okay? So we separate between existence of a thing has to be its material existence in the world. Okay? That material existence has to have a place. Anything material has to have a place. Even angels, the soul, it's a subtle matter. It's a very subtle type of matter, but it is something that exists. Okay? It's just a figment of your imagination. That matter has to exist in a place, so location. And that everything that Allah created requires other creations to help it exist. Right? So we need food. So cause and effect is interacting. That will exist in a world of cause and effect. Okay? So materiality, time, of course, once you exist, you immediately have to exist in a place and you exist on a timeline immediately. The moment you come into existence, that's the 0 point. You move on. Right? And that's the concept here that these 5 things that are purely qualities of created beings, when we say وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ, it means Allah is transcendent above these, beyond these things. He's the creator of this system. This is the system of creation. He created it. So therefore it doesn't apply to him. That's a quick meaning in the quick summary of mukhalafat al-hawadith. He's different from created beings. Different from them in the things that are required for created beings. We all share them. He's different from them in other qualities, in that any quality that we have that is also a divine attribute, we have it because Allah granted it to us. We have it in a limited capacity. Allah has it qa'iman bi nafsihi. It is established within himself. Like generosity. You learn to be generous, right? All right, maybe you were born generous, but something else, such as maybe you weren't born strong. You became strong. But your strength is limited, right? And also, even if you're born generous, who put it there? Right? It is generous. Allah put it there. So with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has qiyam bin nafs with all his sifat are established within him. Nothing added it there, and nothing is needed to keep it, and nothing limits it. It's mutlaq, it's absolute. Whereas ours is always limited. That's the difference between attributes that we see in ourselves and attributes that are also from the divine names. That's the difference. So he's always different from his creation. Last one here. أضعف الخلق من ضعف عن رد شهواته. The weakest of creation is the one who is weakest in repelling his desires. That's extremely important. Who is the strongest of the creation? The one who can control his desires. And that's what Islam does, and that's what the Dajjalic system is against. The Dajjalic system is go into all desires. Okay? All right. Go into all your desires. All right. Feed your desires. Obey them. Render your identity based solely on your desires. Even your own hawiyya, your own identity is not based upon a higher principle. People used to say, I'm a socialist. I'm a capitalist. So his identity was a higher principle, a principle above him that he has to aspire to. The Dajjalic system is so wicked and so bad that was just a stepping stone from a godly standard to man-made standard, and now no standard. Your desires is what you identify as. So today I'm bisexual, tomorrow I'm transsexual, tomorrow I'm pansexual, after that, day after that, whatever. So it's all desires. I'm vegan, right? What I eat and what I don't eat. So your identity, you have rendered yourself to be a slave of your desire, right? Whoever's a slave of their desires, this is the weakest of creation. This is happening as a precursor to a great tyranny that's going to happen. Mark my word, I guarantee you this is the formula of human life forever. The moment of people become slaves to their desires, they will be slaves to somebody else someday. They could be slaves to a government. Now, human being today, does he have any power? Nothing. All you have power to do is collect some money and enjoy yourself. Does anybody really actually have the ability to alter the way things are or change society? No. All right? You're just a cog. You're just a nothing. Okay? And that's because you cannot be an oppressed person until you, and there cannot be a dictator oppressing you, except that you first have become a slave to yourself. Right? Other than that, a dictator cannot come over people who have fought their egos sufficiently, except that they will repel him. It's impossible for people who have fought their egos for the sake of a principle or otherwise to be dominated by a dictator. Why? Because they just simply won't accept it. They will die of fighting him. Okay? And we're going to soon be in a dictatorial system, and some people think it's going to be an AI-rendered dictatorial system. Who the heck knows? No one knows really what's going on. And I think, to be honest with you, AI has some really freaky things, but we'll just have to see how far it goes. Okay.
At least there's like a little bit of comedy in like Kim Jong-un and like,
Yeah.
like at least they're just like goofy humans that they're terrible people and everything, but like at least they're like there's some fun in it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a silly, like you got a funny haircut and you chubby guys and like like what's his name,
Gaddafi is that was comedy. King Jong-un is comedy. The guy loves. I mean, the guy spent like a week with Dennis Rodman. What head of
like
state?
An AI, if the AI dictatorship is it's really actually zero fun at all.
That's
nothing,
it. Yeah.
You know?
An AI dictatorship also, there's no mistakes going to happen.
Yeah.
You can wait for when you look at a dictator. One of the things, if you can't fight a dictator, you wait till he has a fallout with his guard.
Yeah.
Praetorian Guard have stabbed him in the back, right? Like in the old Roman times. That's how. Or you wait until he just gets old. AI will never get old, right? If an AI comes from time and dominates at some point, they're not making a mistake. They're not sleeping, right? They're not getting old. It's going to be a nasty enemy if AI ever becomes an enemy of man. And we'll see if that happens. Because human beings, they're sort of amazing creatures, and Allah always has something new in store for human beings. It's not the case with cats. Every generation of cat, chasing the mouse, right? Running away from the dog, right? Taking naps at odd hours. Allah's will for cats is like one will for the whole of existence. You're going to love mice. This is how you're going to live, okay? Allah's will for humans never repeats itself. There will never be an age of monarchs again, right? There will never be an age of alliances where we have World War I again. Nothing repeats itself.
Or even like soldiers on the ground.
Yeah, soldiers on the ground.
With swords and shields and stuff.
This stuff, it's not going to happen again. And anyone who is trying to make the past happen again is a fool. And that's why nostalgia it has limits for us. Nostalgia has limits. We're not here in New Jersey at Darafats trying to recreate something else. We're not. The only thing that we're trying to do is emulate the taqwa of the past people. And even when we do that, it's going to be very different. Right? When we emulate taqwa, it's going to be extremely different.
It's related to phones and internet.
Yeah, it's related to how did I use my phone today? That's taqwa. When I went to my cousin's wedding, my in-laws' wedding, did I step out when the music started? That's like taqwa in our day and age. It's different. But the essence of it is the same, but it's different.
As we develop, we create our own poison, right? Like even say like AI. We came up with that, right?
Yeah.
So like, we're, monarchs and all that. Everything is.
We created all this stuff.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the intellect to do great things, but to also kind of make our own poison.
Well, every great thing becomes its version of a prison.
Yeah.
If you notice, let me give you an example. There was a designer. This designer came up with one of the nicest styles of book designs, right? And he repeated it for a number of years doing this. And people, at the time, there wasn't a lot of self-publishing, would pay a lot of money to get him to design your book, right? But the problem became is after like 10 years, he was stuck in that mold, right? He was like stuck in that mold. So he couldn't get out of it. And people didn't want his design anymore. It's just easy to emulate. We all know it. And so what do you do at that point? When you're too old to reinvent yourself, right? And you're too stuck in your ways. So we create these things, and anything of the earth will end up being a limitation. Even let's say the wonderful Ottoman Empire. Okay, but the world changed. And the Ottoman Empire you can't take an ancient empire and just alter the way it does everything. It doesn't work like that. So anything of this world gets old. And anything that we create for ourselves that is a man-made concept of morality, not only does it get old, it becomes poison. The capitalist system, in my opinion, will be one of the biggest sources of tyranny in the future. Okay? Because if the capitalist system has to suck something. It's got to suck the blood of somebody. What happens when it starts sucking the blood of the countries, of the banks that are in that are the heads of the capitalist country? So first you suck the blood of the rest of the world. China, Asia, Africa, you suck the money out of there. And then you start sucking the blood of the poor in America. Then the middle class of America. Then the rich of America. Then the government of America. Well, but the capitalist is a human being who lives in America. It's gonna self-destruct eventually. Okay? Everything self-destructs.
Like for the ayat, وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ.
Yeah.
Like, rajul is like what is like carries everything, right?
The
like,
feet.
Yeah, the feet.
Yeah.
It's carrying everything. Like, so like, could this be part of it in the dunya at least? Can that be applied? That like all these things are testifying to these people's intentions, basically? Or is that far?
No, I think it's you can make that, right? Tashhadu, everything about them will testify, meaning eventually something's going to slip out of them, showing their true intentions. Like George Bush, for example. He slipped when he was said about false invasions of Iraq, right? And he meant Ukraine. So everything will testify for you or against you at some point, even if it's a slip-up. أقوى الخلق من قوى على ردها. The strongest of the creation is the one who is able to repel his ego and his nafs. That is the strongest of the creation. And that's why our religion actually has built into it a modicum, a bare minimum of personal strength is built into this religion. Just to get up for Fajr, that's strength. Just to, I'll tell you what else. Just to have to obey your parents, that's a great strength, right? It's a great strength. Because your nafs wants to go one way, you have to say go the other way, right? Just the fact that we have to fast the month of Ramadan strengthens your ego, strengthens your nafs and your morale against your nafs. Okay. Ibrahim Khan says he thinks the fear of AI is just out of Hollywood. Maybe. Let me tell you this, from what I believe. Whatever we fear, that's not what's going to happen. What's the really bad thing that's going to happen is something we never saw coming. And maybe, yeah, it ended up in some journal or some people talked about it. But the way in which it's going to happen is something, it's going to be something we least imagined. And isn't that usually the case with human beings? Did anyone, this was a really interesting article I read one time. The question of, did anyone imagine or foresee World War I? And they thought how would we know this? So they went to political analysts, they tried to look up newspapers, they tried to look up clippings, and then someone said, no, none of that. A true sign that people are aware of something is in how they move their money, right? And he found right up to the day and even after the assassination of the Archduke, okay, people were buying bonds, government-backed bonds, which means they were confident in the system of all these countries. The government-backed bonds, they did have those ledgers. Government-backed bonds were being purchased well through the assassination of the Archduke. There was no lack of confidence at all.
Meaning they didn't see it coming, basically.
Nobody saw it coming. There was no lack of confidence in the system, in the government, in anything. No lack of confidence. Okay.
Isn't there also this perspective that like everything that we take in, it goes to our heart and our mind?
Yep.
And it, nurtures it in a way, and then what we produce is a result of from the heart and the mind.
Yeah.
So if everybody's taking in, these Will Smith movie, End of Time, Robot, AI, blah blah blah, and that's like coding our mind a little bit, then what are we going to put out is going to be a mold
exactly
of that, right?
So when people are going to say, wow, the movie was right. No, it wasn't the movie was right. The movie subtly, because it's entertainment, nobody thinks they're being preached to. It subtly puts in your mind destruction and robotics. That's all I see. That's the biggest theme of all futuristic movies. We live in a destroyed Earth, and the technology is insane, right? That reality is being tucked into everyone's mind. And you already, without realizing it, millions upon millions upon millions of people, they feel that that's where we're going. If you feel that that's where you're going, so we will get there eventually. We will see a world where it's just like that. The Jetsons. We're more advanced than the Jetsons, right? We just don't have the robots yet. Do you guys know what the Jetsons are? Yep. Oh my gosh, some of these people don't know what the Jetsons are.
You know what Black Mirror is?
Never heard of it. No. Oh, it's that hacking movie, right?
No, it's a show.
It's a show about hacking, about futuristic.
Yeah, stuff. It's like different themes every episode.
Yeah.
But it's messes with your mind.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. I watched like 2 episodes. I was like, I'm not watching this.
No, I never. Moeen is in love with Black Mirror. But the Jetsons is a cartoon basically for kids about. Yeah. Hey, Assalamu alaikum, Ahmed. How are you? Listen, I'm on the stream, but I have to tell you something real quick. Can you tell them that container not to leave today because we have one more AC unit that needs to be thrown in there? Okay, good. Thanks. All right. Yeah, I'll call you after the stream. Yeah, no problem. All right, sorry.
The funny thing I remember about the Jetsons is when I used to watch it as a kid, it used to come either right before or right after the Flintstones.
The Flintstones,
so you'd have like the Stone Age cartoon, and then you'd have the futuristic cartoon.
Yep.
Which is very interesting to see those two.
Ibrahim Khan says, but sometimes engineers take concepts and new ideas from movies because of how creative it is. It gave space travel the hype that, yeah, movies, I'm telling you, don't underestimate these things.
It's self-fulfilling though, right?
It's self-fulfilling. The movie is someone's idea, is the medium. Someone who wants to get their idea out to millions of people does not go and write an essay. Does not go write a book, right? Unless that book will be made a movie. If you want to get your idea to millions of people, you make a movie, right? And the people who do make these movies, not 95% of it's nonsense, but every once in a while you get someone with an amazing new idea, creative idea, puts it out there. It's going to settle in so many, like, how about Keanu Reeves? The red pill and the blue pill. Oh, yeah. Everyone views the world from the filter of a movie. Now you say, oh, it's a stupid movie. No, but there is someone smart behind that movie who had vision and imagination of where the world is headed. What is it called again?
Matrix.
The Matrix.
Why are Democrats red and blue? Like this,
Yeah.
This thing I have to think about this.
Yeah. So it becomes that movies tend to be a silly thing, waste of time, but there are some extremely bright and creative visionaries putting out these movies. And when millions upon millions upon millions of people watch it over and over and over and over and over, right? And they start talking about it and it becomes words and it becomes expressions and stuff and idioms and memes, it settles in millions of heads and people become convinced. That's where I'm convinced we're headed to destruction, right? I'm convinced of it for other reasons. You cannot find any nation before us that have indulged in sins and have that as a tradition for centuries. Oh, for centuries we've been committing fornication. No, it's always like
And
that's
lies.
the last phase, right?
What's that?
Lies too.
Lies. And the Quran says, if you want your affairs to be upright, tell the truth, right? Tell the truth. قُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا يُصْلِحْ لَكُمْ أَعْمَالَكُمْ. When lying becomes a norm, fasad is the result. And fasad cannot last. When I say cannot last, doesn't mean they'll be wiped off the earth. It means you'll be rendered like Romania. You'll be like Argentina, countries no one thinks of. You will become that way. The great land of Egypt, politically right now, what is it? Nothing other than a location. If it was not for Israel, nobody would give a penny to Egypt. It would be like the Congo or some other country that's miskin, right? It would be like Peru. The only thing that it has going for it is its geopolitical location, only because America is interested in preserving Israel. If it was not for Israel, no one would give two licks about Egypt, right? It would be as poor as Peru and all these other countries that are miskin.
I mean, it kind of is.
It is already, as it is. And they're given millions and billions of dollars there.
They're the second highest recipient of U.S. aid after Israel.
So Israel's receiving, then Israel's basically linemen. That's what it is. Yeah. You know, when you have someone running, they have to have a blocker. Yeah. They have to. And some of the British people don't know this, but in America, when we have a sport, it's all about running to the other end. So you need blockers, people to block for you, right? Egypt is just a blocker, blocking ISIS off, right? And blocking different Islamic things, right? Islamic movements or just general destabilization, right? Uzay says, isn't it possible that shaitan are also contributing to the collective narration? 1000%. Not possible. It's certain knowledge. Allah says in the Quran, He whispers to them to create fear. What is the goal of shaitan and his whispering? Separation and fear. If you want to know if something has the hallmark of Satan on it, of shaitan, is it separating people and is it scaring people, right? That is the hallmark of what Iblis wants. Divide and scare, right? Once you're divided, it's easy to make someone scared, okay? If you're alone, if you're in a room with 10 people and there's a crazy sound outside, right? You're scared, but there's 10 other people in the room. If you're all alone in that same room and someone's banging on the door, you're freaking out at a level way above when you're hanging out with 10 people. So the first thing that Iblis wants to do is separate everybody. Individualism. He made it look so nice on the outside, but it's so terrible. It's leading to a whole depressed generation. He made separating people ran to it by calling it individual. Fulfill your dream. You're a fool because you don't realize no human being can be happy by himself. Happiness of a human being is living in cohesion with and having a balance between fulfilling my goals and dreams in life, but also having a home to go to that has people that I care for and they care for me. Even if you don't care for them, company is better than being alone, right? And he's fooled people, all right? He fooled people by conflating loneliness with individualism, right? Separation with fulfilling your dreams. And all these people, they separate themselves, okay, to fulfill their dreams, and then they regret having lost their family or their friends. And then he conflated freedom with enslavement to your desire. This is iblis. The real product is enslavement to desires. Okay? Nobody who is a slave to his desires is ever happy, no matter what his desires are. If you're a slave to it, you can't live without it, you're miserable. Okay? All right. Question here from Reviving Art. When you divide, how does that work with madhab and sectarianism? Madhabs are not divided. Madhabs recognize one another as valid opinions. Madhabs exist within dhanni or speculative texts of the Quran. So the Quran and the Sunnah, they have explicit texts and they have interpretive texts. Text, one possible meaning. Text, multiple meanings. The madhabs exist within multiple meanings. No madhab looks down on another madhab. Of course, every madhab thinks their perspective is right. In a way that does not negate that you could be right too. Not only could you be right, but you're definitely valid, right? Definitely valid. If I was to say, for example, it's family night. It's going to be family night, right? Let's say it was family night. In our masjid here, we have family night once a month. Family night, we don't know what the food is going to be, right? There's going to be dinner. We know that for sure. I'm going to say 3 of the last few times I remember, there was fried chicken.
Always.
Right?
Either baked ziti or fried chicken.
Yeah. So I'm going to say there's going to be fried chicken. What's my basis? That we usually have fried chicken. That's the highest percentage of food that we get.
Historical data.
Salty fried chicken.
Salty, very salty fried chicken, right? You try to make yourself feel good about it by eating the salad with the olives in it, right? Those black olives that everyone's pushing them to the edge of the plate. But someone else may say, no, we had fried chicken 3 family nights in a row, so I think we're probably going to have baked ziti, which is, or that chicken with the glaze over it, right? French style chicken cutlet with the glaze over it. So I have a reason for mine. You have a reason for yours. I disagree, but you're valid. That's what a madhab is. Now, what is a sect? A sect differs on a qat'i verse, and they are the victims of iblis. Qat'i verses, there's no discussion about them. Is there a discussion on 2 + 2 = 4? Is there discussion on the meaning of Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad? Is there a discussion on Aqimu Salah wa Atu Zakah? That prayer is fard? There's no discussion on these things. Is there a discussion the Prophet ﷺ said Allah obligated 5 prayers a day? There is no discussion. So when a sect comes out and says, no, there's only 3 prayers a day, yes, that sect has divided itself from the ummah. So there is acceptable difference of opinion and there is unacceptable difference of opinion. And that sect has cut itself off from the rest of the ummah. That's what sectarian. When there is a sectarian divide, by the definition of the word sect or sectarian, the sect that contradicts the qat'i explicit verses, they're the ones who are in the wrong. They separated themselves from the jama'ah. Okay? Now, if both of them go against, then there could be two opposing sects, right? Shi'is and Wahhabis. Well, we have no dog in the fight at that point, right? So they're both sects. Okay. Dina Mitchell is asking, which madhab do we follow? I personally study the Maliki madhab and teach intro to the Maliki madhab. If someone wants to be a Maliki, I'll take you from A to intermediate. Pass you off to Sheikh Harun. Okay? We have Hanafi and arc right here. Wow, I'm doing what all the YouTubers do. Pointing at that little arc view thing. We teach Maliki fiqh, Hanafi fiqh, Shafi fiqh, and Hanbali fiqh. That's it, to prove, to show we hold all the madhabs. They are valid. Disagree or not. You can disagree all you want, but they are valid. Meaning the logic behind it and the interpretation stands as it is, right? It stands. And so you can go to arcview.org while we're at it. Go to arcview.org and sign up for our classes. And you can take pre-recorded classes, and you could take live virtual classes. All ArcView is all virtual, and the recordings are all there. Okay. If you're a beginner, I have my advice to you is to study Sheikh Murad's Aqidah class. Okay. And the Aqidah classes are all symbolized on ArcView by gemstones. Okay, you see these gemstones there? That is a symbol for that it's Aqidah. Right. Every subject we try to put together an image that your mind can easily recognize what it is. Okay.
I started Sheikh Murad's Aqidah class.
Okay, good. How far did you get? What class are you in?
Not the live one that he's currently doing, the one that's on ArcView.
Yes.
I did the first lesson.
MashaAllah.
The Ash'ari Aqidah, what's the...
It's from fall. The fall term.
Yeah, exactly. What's the name of the...
Tahawiyah?
Yeah, no, not Tahawiyah. The little booklet where he describes the Aqidah from the very beginning.
Okay, so that might be Abu Hanifa.
The one that I asked you about.
Yeah. Fiqh al-Akbar, maybe.
Fiqh al-Akbar, yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, let's take some of these questions. Why don't you wear the Maliki Tahniq Imma? Oh, that. Well, if I ever get to Mufti status, then I'll do that. But right now, I am Mu'allim, Mudarris status, teacher status. Teaching you and introducing you to the madhab. We got to convince people why. And I'm telling you, the best way to live your life is to have this is in religion, right? This is the madhab. Only if there's a hardship or something, then I'll go for a weaker opinion in the madhab. And rarely, if there's a super hardship, which there are, by the way, vanilla extracts, for example. There's no way we're going to live life, every ingredient we see is vanilla extract. So we'll go with the Hanafi madhab on that. And many things on the Hanafi madhab. Right? And the Maliki, when he's going to go to something else, he tends to go to the Hanafi madhab. Can a Somali be a Maliki? Of course, why not? Yeah. American Muslim org. What madhab would you say is best for the American lifestyle? Allahu Alam, I can't say. But definitely in matters of buying and selling, it's the Hanafi madhab. Matters of buying and selling. In matters of food, it's the Maliki madhab. Without a doubt about that. But that's not the right way to look at it, by the way. You might have a perspective. You may have a perspective, right? That we should look at the madhab that suits. But there are too many chapters, and what you're going to end up with, I guarantee you, is that if you look at worships, food, marriage, divorce, buying and selling, all these other things, clothes, relations with women, for example, does touching break wudu or not? If you clothes, niqab or no niqab, if you look at these things, I guarantee you'll end up with even. They're all will be even. Yeah. One will be extremely difficult in one area for you to do, and one will be easy. But my point is that shouldn't be our method of choosing. I'm not saying that that's what he's saying, but I'm just saying that's not your method. Your method of choosing should be to look at the usul of that method. But either way, when it comes to a hardship that makes life impossible, life is impossible with this, you exit out of it. Right? You borrow from another method. And secondly, for example, travelers. Shafi'i and Hanbali, no doubt about it. Right? There is a weaker opinion in the Maliki school. I say weaker because I've heard it from a couple scholars, but many scholars said, no, that's not, there's no basis for it, that you can combine when you arrive at your traveling destination, but the dominant opinion is for in the Maliki school, you can only combine while traveling, and you do not combine your prayers when you arrive at your destination. At Shafi'i school, not only can you can combine knowing you're coming back, right? So I could go to New York right now and drive out, let's say, this requisite number of miles, pray Maghrib and Isha, knowing I'll be back in time for Isha. No problem. They combine. So their combination rules for travelers is much easier. But again, that's not how we choose a madhab. You choose a madhab by looking at the imam. You also choose it for practical purposes. If I'm in Istanbul and I'm just starting out and my plan is to live my life in Istanbul, I'm not going to pick the Maliki madhab. It makes no sense. The whole world around you is Hanafi, right? Someone picked the Hanafi method. Like so if it's dominant like that, if I'm like, no, I live all over the world, or there's no dominant madhab, like in the U.S., for example, then that's not much of a factor. Okay. Dina, what about those who don't receive the message of Islam and die as non-Muslims? They go to Jannah. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. That is ayah is qat'i. And any hadith that comes and says that they are tested on the Day of Judgment, that is a sound hadith, but is ahad. And the ahad does not override the qat'i. So the aqidah is, they go to Jannah.
So what's...
The Maturidi say that the aqid is Zuhd.
Yes, the Maturidis, this is a very interesting debate between the two Sunni schools of Ash'ari and Maturidi aqidas. The Ash'ari are Malikis and Shafis. The Maturidis are Hanafis. The Maturidis say the intellect is your messenger. So you put a human out there and there's no revelation. His intellect alone should tell him, obviously he's not going to tell him how to pray. Intellect alone tell you, don't worship idols. Worship Allah alone. Worship one God. You won't even know Allah's name.
This is Maturidi.
Maturidi, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But intellect alone is enough for you not to worship idols and to worship one creator. And you won't even know about worship. It's belief in one creator. Okay? Why do the Ash'aris say no? Ash'aris say no because intellect alone can tell you that, but it cannot tell you that you're responsible for that and that you'll be punished otherwise. Isn't that brilliant? That is brilliant, right? Intellect alone is, yes, it is enough to know idols don't do anything and that we have a creator. But intellect alone does not tell you that you are responsible for this. I might say, okay, yeah, well, all right, well, I move on with life. Why would I move? Am I being threatened by something? Am I being promised anything good? The Ash'ari say if the threat of punishment is also part of this thing, that you are responsible for this. Okay? So my intellect knows that we could take a lot of examples of this. I'm trying to think of an example of what you know, but you don't do it because you're not responsible. Right? There's a lot of things. I know it, but I won't do it because there's no gun to my head. So that's where the Ash'aris say, even with your intellect, and your intellect is enough to know that the idols are no good, are nothing, and that you do have a creator, but there's no gun to my head to take action upon it. So even if I keep worshiping idols after that, I'm not guilty.
So in the Ash'ari perspective, what constitutes receiving the message of Islam for you to become liable for it?
What? Okay, very good. Next question. At what degree do I need to have received the message of Islam to become liable? You need to know it's the same thing as what makes me liable if someone tells me the building is on fire. Right? Namely, somebody needs to simply tell you the identity that you have a creator, his name is Allah. He sent a messenger, his name is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The book is named the Quran. And if we follow it, we have paradise eternally. If we're not down with it, we go against this, we have hell eternally. That's it.
Okay.
Right? Someone comes and tells you, oh, you have a creator named this, that, and the other. Oh, there's a new boss. There's a new executive in the company. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? I'm all the way at the bottom. There's a new executive in the company, and if you don't show up to his initiation, you're fired. Oh, okay, then now I have to show up, right? So all I need to know is that someone needs to tell me the identity of God and his prophet, the name of the God, the prophet, right? The Quran, Islam, somewhere I can research, right? And that you have to do it. There's eternal. What was the prophet's first da'wah? He stood up on the hill and he said, I'm warning you of a great punishment coming, right? He said, if I was to stand here on this mountain, which is a mountain where they used to make announcements in Mecca, and tell you that there is a great army coming behind us here, behind this mountain, would you believe me or not? They said, yes, we believe you. So establishment of trust. He said, I'm telling you that after this life, there is a great punishment. Okay? And you have to avoid that by believing in Allah and his prophet. So that element is very important. But that's it. And we should also mention that it is better to establish. Now, just because something is the bare minimum doesn't mean it's good. It's the bare minimum. But what's better is to establish long-term trust with the people, goodwill with the people. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, his grandfather was made to be the legend of Quraysh. And his grandfather took the Prophet and sat him down and said in front of everyone, this young man will have a great affair ahead of him, to establish that seed of trust. And then the Prophet lives 40 years with the people as an honest man, his only reputation. Is he a khatib? Is he a preacher? Does he give wise counsel? No. No quality that he later has solely from revelation did he have except one. What comes out of his mouth is the truth. If you give him something, he'll preserve it for you. That's it. And these are the qualities of a messenger. As-Sadiq al-Amin. When he speaks, he's Sadiq. If you give him something, he'll keep it for you. Right? He won't steal it. He's Sadiq and Amin. So when he speaks, therefore, thereafter, you have no excuse to reject him as a prophet and a messenger. All right, let's take some questions. There are a lot. Anza Jama'a says, Ya Somaliyin, Ya Ahl Somal, Antum Shafi'iyya. Anza Jamis, where is her name? Or his name, I don't know if it's a his or her. But Anza is saying, Somalians, Minnesotans are Shawafi'. Yes, they are. Their tradition, Anza Jama'a. Their tradition is definitely for sure that they are Shawafi' or Shafi'iyya. Seeker of knowledge. I have a young baby and do not like to have my atheist sibling around my baby. Is it wrong to keep my sibling away from my baby and not invite him to my home? He's antagonistic to Islam. It is not wrong, but for the sake of da'wah, don't try to make them feel that you're staying away. Right? And unless he's an openly antagonistic and you feel the only way to deal with this person is to draw a line in the sand, that's your decisions. That's your decision. Okay? That is your decision. All right, SN is a Somali and a Maliki. Now, why do we promote these four madhabs? Okay, is there any other way to live as a Muslim? Show me in history. Am I going to come up here and peddle to my community a way of being a Muslim that has no precedent? Does a doctor come and give you, hey, check out this brand new pill, take it. Right? We don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's good. Take it. Oh, has anyone else taken this pill? No, nobody. 5 people across the world have taken the pill. When? Did they die? I don't know. They took it 20 minutes ago. They took it 2 years ago, right? No, we do not peddle to people that religion is a life altering. Okay? It is your life. It's the most important. It's how you live. It's what you believe. The core of your life is this deen, right? That's the core of life. What do I believe about the afterlife? What do I believe about the soul? Where do I go to in my darkest moments? What's going to happen after I die? Where did I come from? How do I marry? All these important things. Okay? Are the teachers and the people on the internet going to sell you something and preach to you something that hasn't been tried and tested? Live your life according to the Shafi'i school of understanding of the Quran and the Sunnah. You will be good to go. Okay? But live your life by it and learn it from its people. Hanbali, Maliki, and Hanafi. We can show you and point to you entire nations that have been living like this, stably and reproducing safely without going astray, without having calamities for centuries. Okay? This is one of the things that just drives me crazy about Marxism. When they came in with communism, they went in, they took over the government of Russia, and they applied it to the whole nation right away. Right? They didn't say, let's take a town and test this out. They applied their belief. And you ask them, hold on, you're going to apply communism. Have you ever applied it before? Have you grown up under communism? No. All the founders, right? They didn't grow up under communism, but they forced a new generation to grow up under communism. When you have no experience what that's like, and you can't ask somebody else. Let's say I'm a convert to Islam. I'm going to raise my kids as a Muslim. I don't know. I wasn't like, Ryan, you were never a Muslim child, right? But you can go and ask. There are other people. You could say, hey, Ismail, when you were a Muslim kid, what's the limits here? What's balanced? What's good? Right? You can see it. The communists came and took it and forced it upon an entire nation. And look at the result. They were rebelling within one generation, and Joseph Stalin had to kill how many people? 30 million people? 25 million people? 40 million people?
Yeah.
To shut them up? So within one generation, this thing produced the worst tyranny. Capitalism never killed 40 million people in one generation, right? This is what they're trying to cure, right? You became worse than the cure. The medicine was worse than the cure. So when we're talking about the deen, don't ask just for the evidence. Ask, is there anyone in the world ever done this before? Anyone in the world ever lived like this before and follow this fiqh and this aqidah before? Let's see the result. Don't give me, yes, over there there's a little community. No, I want to see centuries, right? Chocolate Walla, I have noticed some Muslim apologists citing the Hanafi positions in order to give a nuanced view on women's rights in Islam. I don't know much about this, but when you're talking to somebody and they're not really convinced of Islam or they're worried about Islam, you're not bound to one madhab. So you may give them the answer that suits them. Okay, so especially someone who's not a student of knowledge, maybe not even Muslim, but thinking about entering Islam, and they have some hang-ups about how they're going to live in the future.
No shrimp.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine that's go to Maine and sell the Hanafi madhab to those guys. They'll be out of business. Alaska, no crab legs. All right, shut down the family business.
You know, one thing I've noticed about this, the using like the madhab for justification.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of times, not shuyukh, but like in casual conversation with other Muslims, they tend to conflate a historical position with a madhab's position. So, for example, although the Ottomans, for example, were Hanafi, mostly, there may have been times, and again they had a Shaykh al-Islam who advised them, and they did everything as best as they can to that madhab. There were times that the Ottoman Empire, either an individual ruler or a pasha or something, might have done something as a position, but that was not necessarily the position of a madhab, right? Just something that they did on their own whim.
When an individual goes off on his own.
Right, and so that becomes written in history as something, because the Ottomans also were very meticulous at recording.
Yeah.
So is recorded in history, and so somebody in the modern day is looking at it and say, well, the Ottoman Empire did this. So therefore it's, let's say, okay, but was Shaykh al-Islam or any of the other scholars of the Ottoman Empire on board with this, or is this something he did on his own?
Exactly.
And this, I've noticed that a lot of times people actually conflate. They'll say, well, this Muslim empire did this, so it's probably okay. I was like, okay, but was it approved? Or was it something they did on their own?
Yeah, and
there's
also
a lot of corrupt leaders in our, over the course of Islamic history, that we've had so many corrupt people that did things on their own.
And also, when we're looking at how to live life, you look at how people lived, right? In general, were there like uprisings against this method, right? But people accepted it. Yeah. They have their ups and downs, and they have all sorts of issues, as every human does. But in general, they did live upon that method, right? And so when I have to make a judgment call within Islam, what we said, the interpretive texts, what judgment call am I going to make? In my life, I'm going to make the judgment call that has been made by someone else and tried and tested, right? And forget the aberrations, like a bell curve, right? You should have the majority of people living this type of life, and they're surviving, they're benefiting, they're staying on the right path too. They're raising their children upon it, and the children are accepting it, right? And they're not rejecting it. Not some aberration. Now, why we mentioned Joseph Stalin and his aberration? Number one, the people were upset. It's proving that the people hated it. They didn't accept it. So he had to kill them all. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a way of religion that's going to pass on to the next generation with guarantee, because at least in bulk, because we've seen it before. It's happened before. Why are the Hanbalis smaller in number? Because they're the last of the madhabs. And most of the governors and the governments had already adopted a school of thought, and as a result, they tended to be smaller in number, and they only, maybe for a period of time, the Abbasids followed the Hanbali fiqh, And then after that, they did not rule for a long period of time. Shafi'i also did not rule a lot of countries. Yemen they ruled, but then when they went to do Dawah in East Africa, West India, and all of Indonesia and Malaysia, they ruled. The Hanafis have been ruling for ages, and the Malikis have been ruling for ages. When I say ruling, meaning there's going to be a lot of precedent in court. So their fiqh will be more developed and practical because they've seen the court cases come in and they had to handle court cases. And that trickles down into their law books and their fatwa. And so you end up with a very practical method. If you never had to rule, give anybody a guy who come up with a set of ideas and he can never implement them, you may end up with a very unpractical set of ideas because you never tried to implement it, right? I've said this many times about the students of knowledge in the past. They go off and they study for 10 years, 15 years, sometimes imagining they're going to come back and revolutionize everything. They come back and they're 10 years behind because they never had the ingredient of practicality in their minds. And it may take them 10 years to catch up. And here's the scary thing. Sometimes they never catch up. Their mind is fixed. The people are bad. Society's bad. And let me just take my books and go home. Right? Whereas when you hit the ground running, which is why Habib Omar goes out for dawah and he sends people out for dawah while they're students of knowledge to get a taste of practical life. To get a taste that if you have this mentality, you cannot preach to the people. If you have this mentality, you can't get along with kids. When you go on those dawah trips, and inshallah, for those who are going to Tarim, you're going to have these dawah trips. When you have these dawah trips, sometimes a person speaks, and they spend a weekend in a village, and say, okay, you teach that kid Tahara and Salah. You teach this group of kids a proper pronunciation of Al-Fatiha. You get a dose of reality, right? And practicality. That's why these two madhabs, the Hanafi and the Maliki, are so developed in that regard, right? Because they ruled. And the Shafi'is ruled, but less. And the Hanabila ruled, but much, much less.
I think it's Walid who started this whole...
Walid? Who is Walid?
He's Salafi Shafi'i guy.
Walid, not our Walid.
It is it.
Prince of Persia. And he calls himself what?
Salafi Shafi'i.
Why are you calling yourself that?
Salafi what?
Shafi'i.
Why would he call himself that?
Can you even have those two
He
together?
texted me, he's like, I started this whole Somalia wave.
Walid, Prince of Persia, who has nothing to do with Somalia. Are you like a troll in our live stream here? Super Saiyan? What is a Saiyan?
It's like from a TV show, Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
The Dragon Ball Z thing.
He says, can't you conclude that you have to submit to something solely with your intellect because you do witness orbits, rain cycles, geography, and you feel that everything is in order? The answer may be yes, but there is no expression. Your intellect cannot tell you how to submit, right? Does not tell, and it does not tell me the punishment if I don't submit. That's what intellect doesn't tell you. Intellect does not tell you the consequence of doing nothing about it. I can know it, but I'm not doing anything about it. Why should I do anything about it? Miss Kalinur, that's true as Somali. We are all Shafi'iyya, and it was good to learn taking from the other madhabs is a form of rahmah. And ya ayyuha Somaliyin, how did you become Shafi'is? Through the Yemenis. Thank the Hadramis, the people of Yemen who are Shawafi' from ancient times, from the get-go. They were Shafi'is. They're the ones who brought you to the Shafi'i school. They're the ones who did the dawah to East Africa.
Are the Habaib Shafi'is now?
Yep, bin Shafi'i from the get-go,
Okay.
from the founder. Okay. Ahmed bin Isa. He came and he found them either upon no madhab or upon no ilm, just Muslims, or a Shia, and they went and they jammed them. They actually were fought for a few generations.
Yeah.
Why does Sufism has a negative connotation?
Where do we start?
I have to show you this. I have to show you this. Just to show you that I'm munsif. Right? I'm going to hate on anything that's sort of semi-ridiculous. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Munsif means like you show the evidence for and against. All right, let me pull this up.
Wearing brand names minor shirk.
Brand names will never be shirk. It could be.
These,
Well, I mean, what is it going to say? Kafir, you limited or something? I don't know if you could all see this, but look at how they're mock. Look at this meme. This is insane. Can you see this?
That's supposed to be like a Sufi.
It's a Sufi dance. The guy's dancing, having a hadra,
Oh, and they put this music on top.
and they put Michael Jackson over it. Honestly, this is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It just, the beat is so perfect with the guy. Now, by the way, the maximum you could say about it is it's sort of crazy and sort of silly. There's nothing sinful. Stand in a circle and bounce your knees. Are they committing sins? Maximum, it's a bid'ah that is rejected. It's not a bid'ah in aqidah. It doesn't take you out of Ahl Sunnah. Maximum, it's something that you just shake your head. Malik, when they told him people do this, he laughed. Did he say cut their heads, cut their necks? By the way, he had the power to do that. Malik had executive power in Medina. Malik could jail people. The governor came, bring the case in front of him, and he would say, punish him this way, punish him that way, punish him this way, punish him that way. They'd all do it all in one shot. The governor would bring Malik on a day and say he was found guilty of this, punish them this. He was found guilty of that. Listen to this case, he would rule upon it. Okay? And he was strict. His philosophy of law was make the punishment extremely harsh,
So nobody does.
as harsh as possible, so there's safety to everyone else. So one person suffers, which is haqq. It's not falsehood. He's not making him suffer something he didn't deserve, but everyone else will be totally scared, right? So Sufism will have a bad name because of this, and I'm not afraid to say it because this is not how we do it, right? But I mean, it's hilarious though. You have to admit, the beat is so perfect.
I think also and this I noticed this even with like family members in Egypt and stuff. They're always presented with the most I don't want to say extreme in a negative way, but the most extreme like rituals or with the most extreme examples of Sufis, like the fringe of society.
Yeah.
And that like when you look like the average person, like I would say, for example, that I'm I'm Sufi in a sense, but I would never, like, for example, you would probably never find me in this, right? So like, and I do the same day-to-day things and all that, but nobody looks at the average Sufi as that. They look at the average Sufi as
of
that
course,
video that you show. So I think when people think that this is what's going on among the mainstream of Sufis, or if they look at the orders, the Sufi orders, and how they have these very particular ways of doing things, then they say, okay, this is beyond. That's what it is. Beyond what I've learned, and this is kind of bizarre. So therefore, it's
and there is a point to it. By the way, if a group, if it produces that, there is a loose nut somewhere. If you have a perfect machine but it's leaking a little bit, right? There's a loose bolt somewhere. There's no problem in saying that many groups over the ages have had a loose bolt. No problem saying it. And also, it's a low-hanging fruit. It's too easy, right? It's like if you want to bash a group, they give you too much material, to be honest, right? They give you so much material to bash the group. But here's what I ask you. If you were to take the worst of this, right? The worst, okay? And you take the worst of the Wahhabis and the worst of the Shi'is, I would say this is the least, right? Okay, so they go around and they dance and they do things like that. And they go to the graves too much. Worshipping the graves, that doesn't happen, right? But they go to the graves, they wipe, and they do some crazy things like that. As long as it's not entering into their aqidah. Okay, you could, at the worst, you could say, this is a bunch of bid'ah. But these are bid'ah in actions, not in aqa'id. If you go to the worst of where did the Wahhabi movement lead to, right? You can say something like, it led to ISIS. That's their aqidah, right? It may lead to that. Or it may lead to the opposite of a Hakimiyya doctrine of obeying the ruler that is to the point of an absurdity, right? Right? And even that, to be honest with you, that's not even so terrible. That Hakimiyya passiveness to the ruler, it has a basis. It's not so terrible. It's not the worst thing in the world. Go now to the outside of Ahl Sunnah, completely the Shia. And they're striking their backs and whipping themselves. That's too crazy, right? That's way too crazy, right? So when you compare, this kind of thing is really no one's really being harmed by it, except themselves in the sense of their reputation.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of that talk is just, what we just said is just opinions and views. It's not facts. It's just opinions and views about this, and you can differ or not. The whirling dervishes, for example. Yeah, we consider dhikrullah is to be done with waqar. If you want to have a traditional dance for your society to let off steam, is no different to me than a group of guys playing basketball. They want to let off steam and have a traditional folk dance. It can be done, and we have sharia on that. For example, the man can never dance with his waist. He dances with his legs, right? With waist down. He doesn't shake his waist. It's called kasr. It's haram, because that is how women dance traditionally. So that having a traditional dance, I don't think anyone has an issue with it. The Prophet allowed the Ethiopians to have a traditional masculine dance for men, right? But to merge it with dhikrullah, that is where the debate comes in. And what our teachers are upon is that dhikrullah must be done with waqar. That's it. Let's close with Dua an-Nur. And this will be the final stream of the week. We'll see you after this dhikr. We will see you on Monday. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم اجعل لي نورا في قلبي ونورا في قبري ونورا في سمعي ونورا في بصري ونورا في شعري ونورا في بشري ونورا في لحمي ونورا في دمي ونورا في عظامي ونورا في عصبي ونورا من بين يدي ونورا من خلفي ونورا عن يميني ونورا عن شمالي ونورا من فوقي ونورا من تحتي اللهم زدني نورا وأعطني نورا واجعل لي نورا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Aşkınla arasında yıldızlar kadar zikredin. Uzat şarabından için şu canı aşkla versinler. Ya kalbe şifa ver.